Hello, in today's video I'm going to be talking about the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Essentials kit, which came out a couple of years ago. It's an updated version of the 2015 starter set, and it's the best way to get new players and new Dungeon Masters into Dungeons & Dragons. I'm going to be going through what is in the box, so we're going to unbox it, and then afterwards I'm going to talk about some pros and cons I found from running the adventure, which I've done twice. Everything I say is going to be spoiler free, so if any players who are interested in getting this or getting their friend to run it for them, I will tell you the pros and cons of it without spoiling any of the adventure. So this video should be helpful for Dungeon Masters and players. So let's see what's in the box. Okay, so starting with the box, you have very nice artwork of what looks like a white dragon fighting two members of your party. And this is significant because compared to the last starter set and compared to any adventure books, unless I'm mistaken, this allows for 2 to 6 players, whereas usually you'd need at least a party of 4. This means that you can now have 2 players and 1 Dungeon Master. You can even have 1 player and 1 Dungeon Master. And these are made possible thanks to the inclusion of sidekicks, which are discussed in the rulebook, which I'll try and cover a little bit. But yeah, it's a benefit. It's why I bought it. I don't have a party of 4 to be able to play a game of Dungeons & Dragons, so that is why I bought this kit, is because I had 2 friends who wanted to try it, and my girlfriend wanted to try it, and so we were able to give it a go. And so, let's... this will not be in the order, by the way, of if you buy it brand new. I've been using this for a couple of years now, so I've just had to put everything back in the box. But if we start off, you get a set of dice. You got a set of dice in the starter set, but you didn't get as many dice. And the significance of this getting 4d6 is because you can create your own characters now, and that helps to roll your skill scores. And then you get a d8, you get a d10, you get a percentile die, you get a d4, you get a d12, and you get 2 d20s so that you can roll with advantage or disadvantage. I'm not sure if that was in the original set, but that is something that is very handy. Put them over there. You get a box to hold cards. This will be flat, and you just have to do a bit of folding to make it into the box. And in here you have loads of cards, which you didn't get in the original starter set, and they are very useful, so I will go through them briefly. You get these, you get a couple of these that you can give to players, and they are just kind of advisory cards about combat. And it shows you the order, basically, so you can determine the surprise. I didn't really use these. I don't know how useful players will find it, but if they are brand new to the game, it's just a little bit about, rolling initiative, take turns in combat, and then you go to the next round of combat. So they're handy if your players want them. So that's them. And another one. These are quest cards. The adventure, without going into spoilers, is based on a job board. And so these are handy. And I'll give you just one quick example. There we are. It gives you a brief overview of the quest. You can pause that if you wanted to read it. I wouldn't advise players to, but basically they are handy because when the players go to the job board and pick something up, you can hand them the card, and it is essentially a bit more immersive so that it feels like they've actually got the quest in their hand. Next, we have condition cards. These are really useful. I've not played many games in person because of COVID, but these are very handy. These go through all the conditions that you could be under in Dungeons & Dragons. And they've got a little cool animation for each one. There's quite a lot of conditions, as you can see. And then on the other side, it tells you exactly what the condition means. So if a player gets grappled, you can give them that card, and it tells them exactly what their what the problem is and what they can do to get out of it. So they are very handy. I'm always looking up what conditions mean again, because I always forget. These are the sidekicks. So if I get all these, very cool cards that you can give to the party so they know that who's with them. Really nice artwork. So you've got Inverna Nightbreeze, Pickled Pete, Ruby Hammerwhacker, Quinn Hightopple, Nib Addlespur, Galandro Luna, Donabella Fiasco, Talon Thornwild, and Shanjan Quan. Jeez, butchering those. And then on the other side, it gives a little bit about them. So if we just use this one as an example, it gives a bit of a backstory, personality, ideal, bond, and flaw. I'll talk about sidekicks a bit more at the end when I talk about the pros and cons. But yeah, these are very handy if you don't have a big party or there's an area in the party that needs to be filled in, like a rogue. If you haven't really got a rogue type or a healer type in the party, just put one of these in. It says what type of person they are, but you can change it. You don't need to be strict to those. The rest of the deck, I won't go through in too much detail, but these are all magic items. There's quite a lot of magic items in this adventure, and again, it can just help the party if you hand it to them as they find it. They can have it in front of them, and then they always know that they've got it. So I'll go through them as quickly as I can. Sending Stones, very handy. Potion of Healing, Goggles of Night. I'll just flick through them quickly, and you can pause. Potion of Healing is very helpful. Yeah, there's a few pretty cool magic cards. My favourite will be somewhere in here. It's a staff. There it is, Cloak of Billowing. While wearing this cloak, you can use a bonus action to make it billow dramatically. That is a party favourite one there. So you got some magic weapons there, some more items of clothing, charms, more potions of healing. Plenty. They'll need potions of healing in this adventure. And then, so those are all the cards that you get. And like I said, it comes with a flat pack card box, which is this, but it's very, very easy just to hold together, and then that's where you can store all the cards. One sheet. So this is an example of how the cards come. So you'll get a few sheets like this, and they are perforated. So you basically just bend them and tear them, and then they can go into the box. I didn't do this because I haven't used it, but this is basically an initiative tracker. So when everyone rolls initiative, you can just hand them what order they are in. I don't think there's much use for this personally, hence I haven't torn it apart yet, but that is there if needed. Next, we've got the rulebook. This is, and I should have checked before, 64 pages long. I believe the one in the starter set was shorter. This one is longer because, as you can see here, it has a whole chapter on character creation, which was not in the starter set. That just had pre-generated characters. So this allows for character creation, which I think is very, very good. I won't do a flick through. You can let me know if you want me to actually go through this book and the adventure book, so I'm not going to go into detail on either book, but I can do. This lets you be a dwarf, elf, halfling, or human, and then it lets you play as a bard, cleric, fighter, rogue, or wizard. So it was a decent range. My party were quite happy with that. The one that was missing really for me would have been Barbarian. So in one of my games, we just used the player's handbook, and he was Barbarian because that is not included here. And then apart from that, it has the general rules for playing the game about equipment and spells. So everything you need to play this game is in this book. You do not need the player's handbook to run this Essentials kit. Everything you need is in this book. And speaking of books, we then move on to the adventure, which is called Dragon of Icespire Peak. And again, it's that same artwork there with the white dragon. On the back, you have a map key. So all the maps that are inside the book, they'll have these little icons that you may not know what they mean. This is what they mean. Again, I'm not going to go through the adventure because this is a spoiler-free review for players. So players, if you don't even want to know what the chapters are called, then skip ahead a little bit. But for the DMs, I'm just going to open to the contents so that you can see the names of the chapters and how it's laid out. And very quickly, running the adventure. So that gives you a bit of a background of the area and what the adventure is going to entail. Then you've got the chapters: Axehome, Buttskull Ranch, Circle of Thunder, Dragon Barrow, Dwarven Excavation, Falcon's Lodge, Nomengard, Ice by a Hold, Loggers Camp, Mountains Toe Gold Mine, Shrine of Savras, Tower of Storms, Umbridge Hill, Woodland Manse, and then ending the adventure and how to maybe transition to another adventure. But just FYI, there are 3 additional adventures on D&D Beyond that follow on from this adventure, which I'm currently running for my players. And then it also has all the enemy stat blocks. You do not need the monster manual to run the Essentials kit. All the creature stat blocks are in this book. Okay, moving on. I don't think I'm going to have enough space here, but you get a fold-out map. I should just about have enough space. I'll probably have to move it up a little bit. You have... yeah, it's not really going to work here. If I do the other side first, which is upside down, you get a full map of Phandalin. This is where the adventure is set, in the town of Phandalin, just like the starter set. And this gives you a map with certain locations already pointed out. So this is very handy. I put this on... I used a bit of blue tack and just stuck it to the door in the room where I was running my game, which we found quite handy. And on the other side, basically I'm going to have to do it diagonal, but it's a map of the Sword Coast. So there's Phandalin, where the adventure is set. But yeah, nice big map, also included in the box. And then coming towards the end now, you get a DM screen. It's not a particularly good one, but I don't remember the last time I ran a game in person. It's all been online, so I don't have a need for a DM screen, but I think compared to other DM screens, it is flimsy because it is just thin card. Players, if you're curious or if you don't want to know what's behind the DM screen, then you can skip ahead. But basically, it folds out like so, and then you can cover your dice rolls or your notes or whatever. But if I give you a quick look, and then you can pause if you want to actually read through. So that kind of tells you about what actions you can do in combat, bit of info on jumping, concentration. Again, those are the conditions. If for the DM, you don't have the cards in front of you, if the players have them. Those are all the conditions, which is really handy. Setting your own DCs and your armor classes for objects that you didn't think you'd need to if your players randomly decide they want to, attack something made out of wood or bone, then it suggests an armor class for you. General costs of food and drink and lodging, which is something that's not really in the adventure if the players were to go down that route, so that's handy to have. Yeah, travel pace, cover, encounter distance. Like I said, I don't use this very often. And then there's a general size scale for creatures. And, oh, I nearly forgot. Obviously on the other side, the side that the players will see, is some really nice artwork. So going from left to right, you've got your party there on a cart. More of your party in the woods, and then coming out to some orcs. And there's the massive dragon. And that's a hint of what the kind of adventure is going to include. There, you've got some orcs and you've got a dragon. And that is the Dungeon Master screen. Coming to the end. Oh, I keep saying that, but we are coming to the end now. You get 6 blank... Oh, those are some notes from a previous game. You get 6 blank character sheets, and this is quite nice paper, if that makes sense. It's not just flimsy paper; it's quite good quality paper. So completely blank. I've not used these. Again, I haven't needed to because all my games have been online, but I'm quite protective over them because I haven't got any others. But yeah, they're 2-sided. They haven't got a page for spells. That's the only downside. But you definitely use these to make your characters. Last thing in the box is this bit of paper, kind of just showing you other books and stuff. And then on the other side, I've already used these codes, so it won't do any good trying to use them. You get half off the digital version of the Player's Handbook, which I did straight away, and I can tell you it is completely worth it. I would get that, as well as a lot of things on D&D Beyond. It's very good. But yeah, it gives you a digital version of the Dragon of Icespire Peak, which is very handy. Like I said, a lot of the games are now run online, so it's always handy to have the information online. And a digital version of the Player's Handbook, that's the 50% off. Accessed additional adventure content. That is what I was talking about. There are 3 additional stories created now to follow on, and that takes you from level 5, is it level 5? Or level 7, all the way up until level 12, which, like I said, is the games that I'm currently running at the moment now. And that is everything you get in the box. If you want to see the back of the box quickly, just tells you what the set includes. and what Dungeons and Dragons is. Okay, so now we've gone through what is in the box. I'm going to say some of my thoughts on what it's like to run the adventure and what I've been told it is like to play the adventure. And basically just pros and cons for all of that. Just a spoiler alert, it's mainly pros. I've got very few cons. It's the first thing I've ever run, though, so I don't really have much to compare it to. I'm sure the bigger, longer adventures are probably better written and better story. But this is looking at brand new players and stuff, so this is exactly what I'm basing my thoughts on. And also, if you wanted me to make a video actually going through the adventure, so if you were thinking of DMing this adventure and you wanted me to just go through each one and how I ran it and what is in each adventure, then I can do. So just let me know. Okay, my first pro is that it is very easy to run based on how it's written. Basically, each area generally takes one session, maybe a bit longer. So in terms of preparing, you don't have to prepare a lot of different places, a lot of different possibilities. You can generally look at where you think they're going to go in their next adventure, and then the day before just prep for that. And because they're kind of like little one-shots in terms of how long they last, so it is quite manageable to be able to prepare for this adventure as a dungeon master. Another benefit is that the adventure is really easy to adjust for smaller parties. So in each adventure, when it talks about any enemies or monsters that are going to be coming up, it states how many there will be based on how many players you have. So it'll say, for example, there'll be 3 orcs for every character. And so if you've got a big party, that's a lot of orcs. If you've only got 2, it's less orcs, so it's a lot more manageable. So you don't have to scale the encounters yourself, which I know can be quite a pain for DMs to do in the full adventures, because a lot of them aren't written for smaller parties. But this really does take into account those smaller parties, or even just one-on-one, just one DM and one player. It really helps with that. Another pro that I have is that there's good variety in all these adventures in this book. They say that the 3 pillars of D&D are exploration, role-playing, and combat. I think it covers all of them quite well. You've got the ones, where there is a lot of combat. There's some where you do need to role play and interact, because there are times where that can get you out of situations instead of fighting, and especially an early on adventure, without naming it, is quite deadly if the party just go in just trying to kill it straight away. So it does kind of let you explore all 3 elements to kind of warm up to them, which is basically what this set is meant to do. Another pro I have is the longevity of this box. You can be running it for quite a while, depending on how often you play your D&D sessions. I kind of tended to do it maybe once every 2 weeks, sometimes once every 3 weeks if the scheduling, if there's a scheduling conflict. It probably lasts you about 6 or 7 months, really. That there's quite a lot of longevity in this, as well as the 3 downloadable adventures, which will take you from level 6 to 12. I'm still running those, and like I said, I bought this back at the end of 2019. So yeah, you can be running this for a long time, and you can take your characters quite a good journey up to level 12, which is kind of a good level, I think, to end a character. Another pro is that character creation was very easy. Like I said, I'd never run or played Dungeons and Dragons. My players had never played Dungeons and Dragons, but we were able to work out how to create a character very easily. I did look at some videos on YouTube about character creation, but if you just use the book, you'll be absolutely fine. It's really easy to do. And like I said, I can do a video going into the 2 books in this box in more depth if you want me to. The rule book, what exactly it contains, and the adventure book as well. Another pro is what I touched on when I was showing you the sidekick cards, is the sidekicks themselves. That is a pro. It's very helpful, like I said, for any smaller parties. It can help beef out the party if they need someone to run in and take some damage while the actual players can think of a plan. Or vice versa. They can the sidekicks can provide healing, or they can provide lockpicking, or whatever the skill gap. And there will be a skill gap missing if you're only running 2 players or so. They cannot do everything themselves, so they're very handy. Both games I ran, like I said, both games have 2 players in. One of them is a barbarian and a wizard, so you could argue there's a cleric missing there, or a rogue missing there. The other party is a bard and a wizard. You could argue that there's a fighter missing there. The sidekicks are quite handy to use. I personally didn't use the ones on the cards. I kind of came up with my own ones, but if you didn't really want to kind of venture too much outside of just the box, then you could definitely use them. One con I have is there's not much written about how to control the NPCs that the players come across, the other characters in this adventure that they will interact with. There is quite a big margin of putting your own spin on it, whether it's accents. Some DMs aren't comfortable doing accents, so you don't have to do them. But it doesn't really write much about their personality, so a lot of it is kind of up to you to do. I didn't mind it so much, but I know some people would like, from a box like this, as a first DM, you would like to just be told how they act. It might give you a sentence or so, but I wouldn't say that's enough to really have, a long conversation with characters and kind of feel comfortable in that character. So that's a con, but it could be a pro if you like improvising, if you like putting your own spin on how the characters sound and how they act. So it could be seen either way. And that is pretty much it for my overview and kind of brief spoiler-free review of the D&D Essentials kit, Dragon of Icespire Peak. Let me know if you enjoyed it and if you want me to do a video actually looking into the rulebook and looking into the adventure book and kind of my thoughts on the adventure as a whole and how I ran it. You can let me know, as well as the 3 additional adventures which I'm running. I can go over those. They're digital, so I wouldn't have anything physical to show you, but I could definitely share my screen and go over it and what I thought of it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching.